Welcome to another edition of Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC Saudi Arabia. Producer Megan's on the stick. Cody Saftik is on the line, and Garrett Armfield dropped the bag last week, Cody.
Oh, yeah, brutal. I don't know. You can kind of sense it on the build-up. Like, the more you get right, the more you start getting nervous for guys. And with Armfield, the nervousness start becoming like, damn, dude, like, Hayden Stan's way bigger than him. So the whole game plan is sprawl and brawl, but against a much bigger guy, 25-year-old kid, loves to just wrestle. Hayden Stan's prior fight, he hadn't, like, stuck to the game plan of just wrestling for 15 straight minutes. He had decided to strike for the first 2 rounds and then got the sub in the third. And then this time around, he stuck to the wrestling. So he fought a beautiful game plan. I actually had a 1-1 going into the third, but you could tell Armstand just barely squeaked out the second round on damage versus control time. And he was just gassed. They were both gassed, but Armfield's way more gas, the smaller guy, and against a guy that needed just 1 takedown. So he got that 1 takedown. Like, the worst part about it was I tried to hedge out by taking the over 2.5. Thinking, okay, you know what? If Armfield is just going to ragdoll, or sorry, if Heinstad is just going to ragdoll him around, well, then at least he'll probably just win a decision being the bigger, stronger wrestler, let's say. And I missed that too, because there was like 40 seconds to the over 2.5.
Oh, dear.
And yeah, I know, dude. So it was
not a hedge.
Bad news.
Not a hedge.
And it wasn't a hedge.
When
it's
you
bet
something that you can lose on both sides. I actually saw
it's never a hedge when you can do that. You're right. 100%.
I saw right before the market absolutely just like got pounded on the Armfield side. And like recently, like, I don't know, it's just like, I feel like Bet Online probably starts that move. And like, I haven't been tracking it. So like, but I feel like every single time I see that where there's just like really late hard action at Bet Online and then everyone else copies, it seems like a fake. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's happened every single time. I think what's actually probably happening is that they probably have like a lot of like parlay liability. So they're like, here's a better price on Heinstand to like, you know, get some money back. Like, that's my guess on what's happening. But like, I saw that right before the fight and I was just like, I considered hedging some out on Heinstand. I took like I had Armfield in a bunch of parlays with your unified PRP and like your unified, you know, all of your other little parlays there. So yeah, he dropped the bag, bro. He dropped the bag. Anyway,
I had Nate Manis thankfully parlayed with those guys, and I didn't think he looked all that good either. So like last weekend was just another one of these tough cards, but good. Thankfully the Thursday PFL was good, the Friday Unify was good, the Saturday UFC was looking good, and then you had somebody shit in the apple pie. So again, we're back at it trying to sniff out who's going to shit in the apple pie. And let me tell you, Paul Shaughnessy, there's a ton of candidates on this card. It'll probably be a plus money heavy event, so let's see where we can figure it out.
All right, let's try to figure this card out. We got Robert Whittaker taking on Ikram Aliskerov in the main event. Whittaker, a minus 150 favorite. Aliskerov can be had for plus 130. I feel like it's kind of similar to like us thinking of like the Tyra versus Perez fight last week, and obviously that ended in an injury, but that's just betting on MMA. And Tyra was looking good. You know, the striking, everything about his game was great. So yeah, not taking anything away from him. He was well on his way to winning that fight. It's unfortunate that Perez hurt himself and that's how it had to end, but yeah, that's just the sport. But yeah, it's one of those types of situations where you have like a highly touted prospect, somebody on the rise, taking on a proven commodity. And even more so in the fact that like Robert Whittaker is a former champion. He was obviously slated to take on Chimaev. Chimaev has to pull out. Ikram gets moved from last week's card where he's fighting some jabroni. I've already forgot the name of the guy he was fighting. And they're just like, here you go. Like we were talking about actually last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, where we were like, yeah, we got to do something with Ikram. Like, we can't have these, like, minus 1,500 lines. Like, we're not learning anything about him. Well, he's getting thrown into the deep end here, Cody. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, well, like you said, he's getting thrown into the deep end right away. I mean, he's going in there. He's taking on one of the top guys. I just want to see the official scorecard. Yeah, no, okay. My bad. I had a lost train of thought. I just want to cut you off before we start on this card. Tyra wasn't looking that good, dog. He got outstruck in the first round, 23-18. He got his takedown stuff. He lost the first round on all three judges' scorecards. The second round, he's getting outstruck 18-14. Slickest back take of all time, dude. That kid is slick with his jiu-jitsu. His striking's not that good. His wrestling's not that good. Such a slick back take. Such a slick back take. And he blows the MFer's knee out. What a godly performance, Paul Shaws. I hope other people all agree, because they do. The internet was rampant with how good this kid looked. They gave him a $50,000 bonus for jumping on a guy's back and the guy's knee blowing out after having lost the first round and being outstruck in the second round. They gave him a $50,000 bonus. Weston Wilson got a triangle armbar and won a fight. No money. No money. We prefer the guy that accidentally blew his knee out in a fight he was losing. Come on, man. So, anyways, because Armfield already screwed me so bad, it didn't really matter. But for the record, Tyra is one of those Makayev guys. You could fade him coming up. Anyways, for this card, is Aliskerov one of those guys? And I'll admit, man, Aliskerov, sorry. He's one of our guys, Paul. The guy's from Dagestan. He's 31 years old, in the prime of his life. Currently down training at American Top Team. Name ends in OV. He's a 4-time World Combat Sambo champion. He's a 2-time European Combat Sambo champion. He's got the goods, but you still don't know. You don't know yet. He's been smashing subpar competition. I'll admit, on the regional scene, it's not like he's fighting bad guys, but a split decision win over Chad Hennecom. Okay. Loses to Chimaev. You'll give him a pass on that one, but he did get knocked out in the first round. His fight with Diego Gonzalez. Gonzalez got 15 pro losses, 9 of them by knockout. That fight makes it to the third round. His fight with Denis Chulin, he submits in the third round. Who goes 3 rounds at Denis Chulin? So he's good, but he's not great. His wrestling is solid, but again, he's not one of these Khabib types where he's going to chain wrestle you over and over again. The lighter weight class guys are athletic. There's tons of movement. They go, go, go. These bigger guys, they're only looking to shoot a couple takedowns. He seems to prefer to rely on his striking than rely on that Dagestani, handcuff, pull you to the ground, beat the crap out of you type style. And that is the style that we love. Not so much a Russian guy from Dagestan that's chucking bombs standing. Seen it before, not as effective. So again, his regional scene is solid, but I wouldn't say he looked like a world champion prior to signing with the UFC. Gets on the Contender Series and fights as Mario Souza. Now, Mario Souza is a big, tall, long guy that's otherwise awful. Like he struggles to win fights when moved up in a level of competition. And that's another fight where Ikram is struggling to find his distance, man. He's walking into a lot of punches. His first 2 takedown attempts, he shoots from way far out. And then to his credit, he finally does get the fight to the ground. And Kimura's the guy right away. But it's not a good level of competition. And you see that he's not super comfortable with his striking as well. He throws bombs. He's willing to throw a flying knee. He's willing to throw a dirty overhand right, followed by a left hook that comes from the hip side to take your jaw off. But he's not really setting it up. He's not really using his jab. He doesn't really have like an extensive kicking arsenal. He's not deep in his experience as much as he's got a combat sambo style. And the combat sambo guys, it's a chuck 'em type style. Throw these looping overhand shots. Listen, it's a tough style. It's one of the best styles out there. But straight linear jabs, stuff down the middle, it's going to give them problems. And you've kind of seen him struggle with that. But he then goes on to beat Phil Hawes and Worley Alves, both of which are not good, both of which are not ranked guys, never will be ranked guys. But he did look good beating both of them, a couple spectacular knockouts. So his path to victory over Whittaker is obviously to knock the guy out. And with Whittaker, it's not that he's chinny as much as he's taking a lot of damage at this point in his career. He's still only 33, but 35 pro fights, and a lot of those fights have just been drag him out wars. So yeah, if he's going to get caught and get knocked out, it's going to be sometime soon. And a guy like Ikram Aliskerov, who's throwing caution to the wind, could very well be that guy. But again, outside of beating up regional show level talent, you've not seen him in a 5-round fight. You've not seen him against a world-class guy. Not only have you not seen him against the top 15, other than Chimaev, who wrecked him in 2.5 minutes, but you've not seen him against the top 15. You've not seen him against the top 5, top 10. And now he's taking on a former world title challenger who's like number 3 or something. So it's a giant step up. Now, he had been booked against Paulo Costa, but the fight got rescheduled. And he got booked against Nasruddin Imavov, but Imavov pulled out. And he got booked against Anthony Hernandez, but he pulled out. Aliskerov did. So those are 3 badass opponents right there, but none of those fights materialized. So again, I think the guy's good. Prime of his life, American Top Team, Dagestan, OV, love it all, love it all. But again, you haven't really seen that deep level of talent from him yet. So you're just making an assumption that he could be that guy. How does he match up with Robert Whittaker? Well, again, Whittaker's taken a ton of damage, dude. Going back to he getting knocked out by Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at 170, that fight was ages ago. It's a decade ago, right? Since then, moves up to 185. The 2 fights with Yoel Romero, those changed his life, just those 2 fights. His fight with Israel Adesanya, knocked out in the 2nd round. His fight with Darren Till, he got rocked bad, but he won it. His fight with Dricus du Plessis, knocked out again. And even that fight with Paulo Costa, that spinning hook kick that he eats at the end of the 1st round. People are a lot more like, saved by the bell. It wasn't saved by the bell, but he did do the stanky leg. Like he was hurt, and he was going to eat a barrage of Paulo Costa punches to follow that up. So he can be fighting a brilliant game plan, and oftentimes he is. He's working the jab, he's using his footwork, he's using some head movement, he's winning the round, and then just like one shot will catch him and cause him to do the stanky leg, cause him to take a bad step, cause him to all of a sudden, be in survival mode and backpedaling and only using the jab. So the issue with this fight is I think he is the more talented, quicker, better striking, a lot straighter, cleaner technique than Ikram. Should be able to beat him with the punch, should be able to use that jab, should be able to matador him a little bit, taking him to some deeper rounds. And Whittaker's been to those deeper rounds where Ikram hasn't. So once he starts to tire, Ikram, for the record, also keeps his hands very low. So like a jab, low kick type game plan is going to be effective. Now, people have been mentioning, well, what if Aliskerov just takes down Whittaker? Dricus did it, and that's fair. It wasn't a great takedown that Dricus used to get Robbie down. And once he got him down, he mauled him. So that is in play. But, historically, Whittaker's had good takedown defense. Guy that originally qualified for the Commonwealth team for Australia back in the day. I just have to have enough faith in his back class to hopefully use that game plan of sprawl and brawl, get the jab working, use the cage surface as much as you can, move linearly, get into that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, and then you can expose this guy because he's never been there, and you have. So I gotta go with Robbie Knuckles to get a win here, but I'm expecting it to be a competitive main event that you're gonna be puckered up in because Ikram Aliskerov is a 1st-round knockout guy, and he shows a lot of 1st-round finishes on his record. So it'll be a greasy one, at least early.
Yeah, like that's kind of my thoughts as well. It's like I can't really back him at this price until he kind of proves against a higher level of competition that he belongs in there. Both of them are going to be ready, but like Whittaker's known that he's going to Saudi Arabia for a while now, whereas Ikram, I don't know what his travel situations were. Like, was he already in? I guess he's been in Florida, so he probably went out to Vegas, and then they canceled his fight, and then he flies over to Saudi Arabia. So
Two weight cuts in 2 weeks.
Exactly. Travel kind of improves or advantage, I suppose, for Robert Whittaker. He has shown gets a little bit wobbled in some of these fights against top-level opponents in the middleweight division. But, yeah, at minus 150, a 60% win outcome, like, I got to go with Robert the Reaper as well. And very, very possible we get proven wrong and Ikram is the real deal, but...
And then you'll know. And then you'll know once you see it.
Exactly.
But we haven't seen it yet.
100%. All right, we got Sergei Pavlovich taking on Alexander Volkov. Sergei is a minus 240 favorite. Volkov can be had for plus 205. Sergei, he was a battering ram in between Overeem and Aspinall, just killing everybody in the 1st round. We know that he trains with some decent level wrestlers since the Overeem fight where he got exploited on the mat. So he's just been good at keeping the fight standing and knocking them down. The interesting thing here, reach I think is kind of overrated, but Sergei does have a 4-inch reach advantage somehow against Alexander Volkov, who's insanely tall. But Volkov's been knocked out by Derek Lewis in round 3 in a fight that he was absolutely cruising in, and Derek Lewis just finished him right at the end of that fight. And then I think his other previous knockout loss was way back on the regional scene. I'm not even going to look at the name.
Yeah, Vitaly Minikov knocked him out way
back in 2013. His chin's been holding up. He's fought some decent heavyweight opponents. Could Pavlovich knock out anybody on any given night? Of course he can. But at minus 240, heavyweight volatility. Volkov, starting to show some flashes of a bit of a submission game. I don't think he's got the wrestling to really do much or get this fight to the canvas. But if he does get a knockdown, he's shown that he doesn't necessarily just need to grapple. He doesn't need to just go for ground and pound. He could snatch up a submission as well. Body of work, the length, the experience. You know me, I love Pavlovich. But I'm not prepared to back him at minus 240. I think it's a clear dogger pass situation. What about you?
Yeah, I actually agree. And similar to the main event, we're either going to be right and look like $1,000,000, or we're going to get folded like a cheap tent in the first round and look like fools, because that's the swing. That's the swing. Pavlovich is going to win this fight, which is possible. He's going to knock out Volkov in the first round. We got to get out of that first round, Paul. And if we do that, I think that we actually are not looking terrible. So you mentioned it, and you mentioned it perfectly. Guy's a battering ram, and that's what he is. And when you have that style, he's athletic, he's fast, he hits like an absolute hammer. Apparently, he has a wrestling background, but you never see him utilize it. He's fallen in love, like Roy Nelson, throw everything else out the window and just blast these guys in highlight reel fashion. And it's worked for him, so there's no point in getting away from it. You know, he blasts Shamil Abdurakhimov, he blasts Derek Lewis, he blasts Tai Tuivasa, blasts Curtis Blades. The Blades fight, to me, though, okay? So Blades is at least still a big guy, and Blades has a long reach himself. Fights like a long guy at times, but pretty much every time Curtis Blades has ever lost a fight, is because he's chosen to just stand and bang with the guy. So Blades loses this fight with Pavlovich because he stands and bang with the guy. Pavlovich doesn't cut angles. He moves straight on. He's a straight on battering ram. He's not coming at you from the side. He's coming at you dead on. Because he's very quick, very athletic, moves fast for a big man, and has those heavy hands, he's able to just cruise through guys that don't have that technique. Shamil Abdurakhimov was in his 40s at the time. And what is he good at? Really nothing. Derek Lewis is fun, but he stands and bangs with you. Tai Tuivasa stands and bangs with you. Neither guy has any boxing. Neither guy has any footwork. They're both brawlers. Curtis Blades is a wrestler, but he chose not to wrestle. But again, if you watch that fight, he touches him up with a couple of really nice right hands that Pavlovich just walks through, for the record. But he has moments where he's most definitely hitting him. Then eventually he catches Blades, who maybe does have a history of getting caught, and he puts him away. So I was on him for the Tom Aspinall fight. I'm believing it. I'm thinking, man, the guy's got wrestling. That is his base. You can see that he can strike. And although he's really never been out of the first round, and he looked like a complete fish out of water against Overeem on his back, you're willing to bypass that because Tom Aspinall, you know, he got the leg injury and he's been off for a little bit and he hasn't really fought that many good guys. He did smash Volkov, for the record, but MMA math obviously does not work. What I'm getting at is I did have Pavlovich, and Pavlovich rocks Aspinall, and as soon as he steps in and Aspinall tags him with the right hand, why does Aspinall hit him with that counter? Because he walks dead set into it with his hands down. So with Volkov, yeah, he is 4 inches taller, but he's giving up 4 inches of reach. But as you mentioned, it's a little bit misleading because, one, Pavlovich isn't using a jab, and he's not throwing anything straight. He throws a little shuffle uppercut up the middle and then just blasts you with left, right, you know, cocks you with the big right hand. But he's not somebody that's using that reach to his maximum capacity, whereas Volkov is. Volkov's best weapons are his teep kick straight up the middle, his little side kick. It's all keep you at bay weaponry, right? And so if you want to crash the pocket, he generally keeps that distance by hitting you with those kicks. Those up the middle will do some damage. Him working the body would take some gas out of the engine, so to speak, of a Pavlovich. But the other thing is, you watch Volkov's last fight with Tai Tuivasa, which Tai is not Pavlovich, let's be real, but he fights in a similar fashion, which is athletic big man who explodes the pocket and tries to land punches. And Volkov times him with a short little counter right hand 3 or 4 times. He stings him twice with it in the first round. The first round ends. Tai Tuivasa looks over at his corner. He wipes a bunch of blood off his face. He shakes his head, almost in disbelief that he knows he's getting his ass kicked. In the second round, he walks into the same counter right hand, stumbles him, and he fist pumps Volkov and like gives him a little like, what's up? At that moment, he's mentally broken. He's out of the fight. And that's why when Volkov puts a forearm across his neck for an Ezekiel choke, he just taps out, right? Because he's mentally broken. But he walks into that counter right. And that counter right, I think, would be a nasty weapon against Pavlovich, who's going to do the same thing. He's going to explode. He's a little faster than Tai. He hits a little harder than Tai. And he's a little better than Tai. But a similar game plan of using the kicks up the middle to keep him at bay, wait for him to jump in, time him, hit him with a counter punch, would be effective. Second thing is, Volkov's been deeper into fights. So if the fight is going to go 25 minutes, you've seen him go 25 minutes with Curtis Blades. You've seen him in some main event spots where he's been booked. I feel like his cardio would be a little more trustworthy. Plus, he's very efficient with his striking, right? He's not throwing caution to the wind every time, whereas Pavlovich is. So when you backing an underdog, it's talk about what are our path to victories. Striking, yeah, I give that guy power and athleticism, but clean technique, we have a path of victory there to maybe just catch him on a counter shot. We have a path of victory on I think we have the superior cardio. We have the superior experience, 35 years old, but not for heavyweight, but superior main event spots, superior level of competition, I feel, for the most part. That's all good stuff. Last but not least, Volkov has a grappling game. Like, he's mostly losing fights because superior grapplers just want to ragdoll him to the ground. But in this spot against Pavlovich, if he can pull what Overeem did, which is maybe touch the guy up a little bit standing, trip him up to the ground, catch something and get him to the ground, I think Pavlovich is very much lost once he's there. So you got multiple paths of victories. If this gets out of the first round, Pavlovich gasses. If Volkov can use that height and just intercept him with the counterpunch, if Volkov could somehow get this fight to the ground, although I'll admit, it's easier said than done, but similar to the Romanov fight, sting him, hurt him, take advantage of the moment to get the fight to the ground and then smash him. So if this is an even money fight, which I'm pretty sure it is, as far as I'm concerned, it's a heavyweight fight between two of the top guys of the division who both bring a wealth of, experience in their own ways and talent to the table. It's a very winnable fight for both guys. So to see this line, I got to go Volkov. Furthermore, maybe good live betting opportunity. If Volkov, I don't know, if he drops the first round but makes it to the second, still interesting to me. But beyond that, I'm just hoping he doesn't lose the first round. He just fights a clean, efficient game plan, stays to the outside, moves, allows Pavlovich to explode in, and eventually he'll get frustrated from chasing. He'll make a bad mistake, capitalize on said bad mistake. So sign me up for underdog pick number 1, Alexander Volkov.
All right, moving on down, we've got Kelvin Gastelum taking on Daniel Rodriguez, minus 260 for Kelvin Gastelum. Daniel Rodriguez can be had for plus 220. It was a pretty bad, welterweight return last time out for Kelvin Gastelum, taking on Sean Brady, and Sean Brady, frankly, just completely dominated the grappling. That was something that Kelvin had been kind of known for earlier in his career. Then he got in some fun fights and then kind of got away from the wrestling, the grappling. I feel like this matchup is well set up for Kelvin if he wants to put that singlet back on and go back to the guy who took down Ian Heinisch 6 times in other fights earlier on, a few years ago, where he was actually utilizing that wrestling to his advantage. And there's not too many matchups, to be perfectly honest. It's the Ian Heinisch fight that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, where he got 6 takedowns. But you look at D-Rod, and yeah, Neil Magny took him down 5 times. Kevin Lee took him down 3 times. The path is most definitely possible. It's definitely there. At minus 260, I would like to know in advance that Kelvin Gastelum plans to come into this fight and wrestle for me to feel comfortable with it. Because if this is just a tit-for-tat striking match, it's a fight I think Kelvin Gastelum can win, but it's going to be close. Probably a lot closer than you really want it to be. D-Rod is able to put up a pretty decent, not even decent, very, very good volume against anybody if it just turns into a 15-minute boxing match. I could see this being kind of one of those fights that if it just stays on the feet for 15 minutes, we're looking, if we have Kelvin Gastelum in parlays and stuff like that, we're looking for a little bit of help from the judges. And you never want to ask for help from the judges these days, Cody. So Gastelum will be the pick, but I hope he wrestles. I don't have too much of an appetite to bet him at this price right now. What about you?
Yeah, so we kind of joke around, but not really joke around, but we talk about pretty much on every show these spots that it'll probably be a split decision type of spot. And if you have a book that offers a split decision type of play, which fights fit in that criteria? This fight fits in that criteria because I think Kelvin Gastelum wins. I think he's the better fighter. I think if he mixes in the takedowns, like you said, he could make this way easier on himself. He could win this convincingly. But KG just doesn't really do that. He prefers to stand and bang. He hasn't really gone to a takedown heavy approach since the Ian Heinisch fight, as you mentioned. And since then, he's just kind of comfortable with standing in the pocket and exchanging with guys. I think he'll do the same thing in large part here against Rodriguez, but I'm hoping that he mixes in a couple takedowns or not. To me, this is kind of why I think it's going to be one of these split decision type spots, is that Kelvin Gastelum is, well, he's had 21 fights in the UFC. In those 21 UFC fights, he's not eclipsed 100 strikes landed. No, that's a lie. He beat Johnny Hendricks. He landed 124 on a body bag, an absolute ghost of a fat Johnny Hendricks. And that was 8 years ago. Okay. But since then, he's not eclipsed 100 fights, 100 significant strikes landed in a fight. He's fought 5 rounds, 4 times. 4 times he's gone 25 minutes. In neither of those 4 fights has he ever landed 100 significant strikes. Whereas Rodriguez is not really good. Like, his takedown defense is not great, although he's a big guy for welterweight. Like, Gastelum's trying to get away from these middleweights, and he's essentially fighting another middleweight, but all the same, he's a 10th planet BJJ guy. He's got some grappling. He is not the easiest guy to take down, although that is a weakness of his, but he throws just a ton of volume. In all of these fights he's landed 4 times. He's landed over 100 significant strikes. On the Contender Series, he landed 108. Against Gabe Green, he landed 175. Against Mike Perry, he landed 129. And against Kevin Lee, he landed 120 significant strikes. Even his fight with Neil Magny, he got taken down 5 times and subbed in the 3rd round. He still landed 66 significant strikes while spending the entire time on his back or up against the cage. So he throws a lot of volume. And even though Kelvin will be landing probably the heavier shots, and Kelvin will be moving forward for the most part, and Kelvin might mix in a takedown or 2, he very may well just be like slightly behind on the significant strikes landed count. Now, it's going to cause some judges to be like, he's getting outworked, and that would be a problem. Mentioned Kevin Lee fight. Kevin Lee's a natural lightweight. He was basically retired, came back and fought him. Still beat D-Rod in the 1st round. But as he starts to slow, the volume overcomes you. Gastelum's debut at 170, it wasn't even at 170. This fight with Chris Curtis, it was at 85, sorry. But the 1st round, dude, he looks like $1 million. The 2nd and the 3rd round, it's like a pacing issue where it's like he just doesn't want to go tit for tat. A headbutt in the 2nd round causes him to win it on the judges' scorecards, and then he loses the 3rd round to Chris Curtis, getting outworked. So this is likely
Platinum Mike Perry took him down twice.
Twice. Yeah.
And had 2 minutes and 49 seconds of control time.
But you're right. But he got back up and he beat Mike Perry, and he absolutely beat him pillar to post with his striking. And Mike Perry is this king of bare knuckle boxing, a guy that's a junkyard dog, a guy that had fought Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque. Like, it's a quality victory for him. He matadored him. He did an excellent job. But you're right. He got taken down twice. If you remember Mike Perry during that last stint of his UFC career before he got released, or I don't know what really happened there. Because why would you cut him, dude? He's so entertaining. Anyways. He was mostly just wrestling and grappling. He was at Fusion XL. He's working with Jacare. He's working with Rodolfo Vieira. Not only did he spend a lot of grappling in this fight, trying to take him down, but his fight with Mickey Gall, he dominated him, 3 takedowns, and spent the vast majority of the time, on top of Mickey Gall. So, yeah, it's a different version of Mike Perry. But to get back on track here, it's like D-Rod does have that volume. Now, this is why it's like, okay, we'll make a pick. Are you going to take Rodriguez? Are you going to try to get some dog money? You think he's going to outwork him? I'll tell you why it's like I'm not going to pull the trigger in this spot. Rodriguez gets booked against Kevin Holland, right? Jingliang Li's booked against Tony Ferguson down a weight class. The UFC has that shuffle up. Chimaev ends up fighting Kevin Holland. Tony Ferguson ends up fighting Nate Diaz. And what do you know? Jingliang Li, a welterweight, ends up having to fight Rodriguez. Jingliang Li gave up 9 pounds to him in that fight. And I thought he won. I thought Jingliang Li won. Good 1st round for Rodriguez. 2nd round, Li's pressure, that ability to come forward, land the bigger shots, sways it for me. Again, split decision. That's why I'm telling you the split decision prop ain't bad here. But I thought Li beat him, and he was giving up 9 pounds, and it took the fight on like 6 hours notice. Then his fight with Neil Magny, the 5 takedowns. The fight with Gary Machado, it's a pretty decent head kick, to be honest with you, but it just completely discombobulates him. He hits the deck. That's the end of it. And then he gets booked with Santiago Ponzinibbio. Now, keep in mind, he's looked like shit in his last 3 fights to this point. He did not look good against Li. He greased a split decision robbery over him. He loses to Neil Magny, where he's submitted, and then he's knocked down in the 1st round with Ian Gary. He's 36 years old at the time. His career is trending downwards. He should be on a 3-fight losing streak. It's a 2-fight losing streak, both by finish. So what's he do? Bam! He takes some Osterine and gets popped for it. So he's serving a 16th month suspension. Fight with Ponzinibbio gets scrapped. Now he's just shy of his 38th birthday, coming back into the UFC, presumably with no performance enhancers, hasn't fought in a while. Is volume enough to beat Kelvin Gastelum? Nah, probably not. And again, Gastelum's moving forward. He's landing good shots of his own, and he's mixing in takedowns. Last small little point is that Kelvin Gastelum is a southpaw and Rodriguez is a southpaw. And Gastelum's fought other southpaws like Chris Curtis, or Izzy Adesanya is a switch stance guy, and he's very good against other southpaws because he can shoot out of that stance. He can move forward. He pressures guys. His left hand is a very exceptional weapon for him, and he's got fast hands for the division. Rodriguez has not fought. That's a lie. He fought Rico Farrington on the Contender Series as a southpaw, but he struggled with him, and he's not fought one since. So these little tiny things are just enough for me to say, yo, Gastelum is going to win. He is going to likely win a decision unless Rodriguez is all the way shot to bits. You've seen him finish his last 2 fights. I'm not expecting a better version of him. He's clean. He's off a 1.5 year layoff, and he's getting to the twilight years of his career. So recipe for disaster. Got to go with Kelvin Gastelum.
Yep. All right, we got Muhammad Naimov taking on Felipe Lima. Naimov, a minus 120 favorite. Lima can be had for plus 120. Who you got here?
Yeah, this one could be greasy as well. So with Naimov, I don't think he's very good. I've never really been that high on him. The thing is, he's from Tajikistan, and these guys are very physically strong. They are junkyard dogs. They will come at you. They will pose a lot of problems, right? Throughout his career, there's been a ton of these, let's say he gets to the Contender Series. He takes on Colin Anglin, okay? Colin Anglin's, I don't want to call him a bum, but he would go on to lose his next 5 fights after winning this one over Naimov, okay? And it was not good. It's not good. Got to call it what it is. But he loses to Colin Anglin in like a terrible fight. Then he loses to Olivier Murat his very next time out on a Titan FC regional in Florida against a kid that was supposed to be an okay prospect, but never really made it. So he's a bust as of 2021. Naimov's not really all that good. Then he signs to the UFC based on a split decision win and a win over a guy that was 4-3. But they need a guy, and he's short notice. He takes on Jamie Malarkey, and he's a big underdog, and he is getting his ass kicked for 6.5 minutes of that fight. And then he nukes Jamie Malarkey, crazy, got a bonus out of it, gets a UFC win. I'm not hating on the guy. I like him. He's got a very entertaining style. It's just not for me. His cardio issues, his takedown game is predicated on just muscle power, and because he doesn't have the cardio to back it up, I don't like it. His striking, again, he's got more of a combat sambo striking style where he's just throwing caution to the wind, these big murderous hooks, throwing everything he's got into it, and then trying to follow that big right hand with that, use that forward motion, that forward movement to go right into the takedown. If he can press you up against the cage, he'll do so. He fights the type of style that I don't like betting against. Brady Heastan, goddamn, why do I bet against that? You don't want to bet against a big, strong, grindy guy. But in his case, it's like I'm not convinced he's got the cardio to keep it going. His fight with Nathaniel Wood is next time out. And this one's going to be key here. So he beats Nathaniel Wood. He kicks Nathaniel Wood twice in the groin. He grabs the cage twice. And he grabs Nathaniel Wood's gloves twice. The finishing sequence at the end of the 3rd round is him about to getting TKO'd. And he grabs the inside of Nathaniel Wood's gloves, which causes the referee to warn him and stop the action, which causes the rest of the time to click off. And the fight's done. He cheated 5 or 6 times in that fight and never lost a point. Had he lost a point, that fight would have been a draw. But it's another example of he goes balls to the walls for the first 2 rounds and then just completely gasses himself and has to resort to these tricky little veteran tactics to buy him time. And it's not for me. So I try to fade him against Eric Silva. Bad move because Eric Silva blows his knee out like a minute in. But the idea to me was still there. This guy is fade worthy. I'm not convinced he's that good. He's over reliant on just power wrestling these guys to the ground, but he doesn't have that 15-minute cardio to really follow it up. So he's supposed to fight Melsik Bagdasaryan in the spot. Bagdasaryan pulls out with a torn labrum. Bagdasaryan's pretty much just a striker, so maybe Naimov could have had some success with that, game of just power wrestling, but I don't know. Felipe Lima, meanwhile, he is the Octagon champion over in Europe. So just won the title a year ago. He's been injured since then. He was booked for a rematch. That fight, they let him out of his contract to sign with the UFC. So it's not like he's underprepared and coming off the shelf. He was going to get ready for a fight, but it's a month later. So he's cutting his camp short. To me, what's got me a little irked here is that he's moving up a weight class to 145. The bantamweight. And Naimov is not good. Let me repeat that. He's not good, but he's a big boy. He's like 3 inches taller than Lima. He's got a reach advantage on Lima. And the reason why, what's his career best victory? There's only one. Damn, that's a nice win. You cheated 5 times, but you beat Nathaniel Wood. I cannot take that away from him. That is a quality victory. But Nathaniel Wood's a career bantamweight. And when he comes up to 145, he's a small little guy against Naimov. And you saw how much Naimov was able to get him to the ground and outmuscle him in certain spots. And that could very well be the issue here with Lima. Lima's the better fighter, just like Nathaniel Wood was. But moving up the weight class to 145 on somewhat of a short notice against a full camp Naimov is going to be problematic, especially early. Can he turn the tides like Wood almost did and get that third round finish? Can he stuff more takedowns than not, keep this fight standing, and use his superior striking? All maybes. But moving up a weight class and giving Naimov that ability, that the one thing he does good is now going to get, I don't have a good word for that. Like, it's going to get times 5. That's not even a good way of saying it, but it's just like you're giving him more of a chance, let's say, by taking the fight up that weight class and allowing him to outmuscle you. So Naimov, he trains at Elevation in Colorado. You would think that this is a guy that's dedicated to working on the cardio. And at some point in his career, because he's still young, some point in his career, if he puts it together, it'd be a serious problem. But I just haven't seen it quite yet. So here's the dilemma here, okay? Lima opened up at plus 180, and he was the play. Lima's now even money because most people that saw it early jumped on it, and it's not that great of a pick now. It's a 50-50 fight. That's what we're expecting, because I traditionally have been a Naimov hater. I have to fade him again. I have to fade him, and it'll pay off for me eventually. So Felipe Lima is the pick, but I'm expecting a bad round and a half, a tough start to the fight. He's going to have to show some serious resilience. Kid's fought 5 rounds. He won 5 rounds in his last fight. Yeah, it's a year ago. Yeah, you're now up a weight class on short notice, coming off an injury. But he's gone 5 rounds, right? That ability to go those deeper waters hopefully wins it for him. But again, dude, totally greasy fight. Hard to be confident on either side.
Yeah, I actually just bet. I had a book that has round 3 to start. Yes, minus 147. Felipe Lima has never been finished. I mean, Naimov knocked out Malarkey, but like we've talked about this many times before, Malarkey's pretty chinny. I suppose that was up at 155 pounds, so that second round knockout was a little bit more impressive. This is being at 145. It could be a difficult situation, I suppose, for Lima, but I don't know. Like, and then the other finish in the UFC here is, a straight up injury against Eric Silva last time out. On the Naimov side, he's never been finished either. So I feel like
he's the Tajik tank. But
yeah, exactly. It's like I feel like 2 rounds is very, very, very much in play. A lot of it probably rests on Lima and his ability and his preparation, I suppose, for this fight. But a regional champion is not going to come in here and just try to drop the bag. So. Yeah, I took the over. I'll side with Naimov, I suppose, ever so slightly, but I don't plan to bet, an actual winner in this fight. Let's move on to the next one. We've got Johnny Walker taking on Volkan Oezdemir. Johnny Walker was the favorite. This one's been flopping back and forth. When I made the board, Oezdemir had slightly edged to be minus 115, minus 105. When I look at it right now, it's a straight pick 'em, Cody. Who do you like here?
I think I got to go with Johnny Walker, and for no real good reason. It seems like since he moved over to SBG Ireland, they've put an emphasis on getting away from the excitingness and just fighting these smart game plans, which, I mean, he's a fan favorite. He's a fan favorite because he soars through the air like a glorious Brazilian Irish bald eagle with a flying knee and cooks guys, or he does a spinning back fist, or he throws something crazy and he do the worm afterwards. And we like Johnny Walker. And so on a fan standpoint, John Kavanagh ruined this guy. On a career standpoint, he's fighting way smarter. He's 6'6" with an 82-inch reach. So he should not be throwing these flying knees inside the pocket. He should be trying to box these guys up inside the pocket. Like, fight long and use your feints and use that athleticism to draw out guys and then counter them. So I think he's doing the right things. Unfortunately, because he's a big name and he gets paid boku buckos by fighting standards, Ankalaev, he gets booked against him twice. He's going to have to fight the good guys. He fights Ankalaev twice. He's fought Anthony Smith. He's fought Jamal Hill. He's fought Thiago Santos. He's fought Corey Anderson back in the day. Like, it's mostly been big fights for him. Again, since he's moved to SBG Ireland, it's a lot of just like a lot slower pace, but I think he's starting to find his rhythm. 4 fights back, he knocks out Paul Craig. That's expected. Then he fights Anthony Smith. Would I have liked to have seen him finish Anthony Smith? Sure. But he's fighting smart now. He's got a higher ring IQ. He's sticking to the game plans. And in that fight, you see him just fight really long. Again, he's got that athleticism and that length for the division where he is on the high end of size for 205 pounds, and he's using it, and he's just doing a good job using his footwork, using, you know, those distance kicks to just rack up points. Your opponent eventually gets desperate. He tries to crash the pocket, and you're not in the pocket anymore. You've moved off to the side. So I actually don't mind it. He outstruck Anthony Smith 92-38, had a takedown in the mix as well. I thought it was a fantastic job. The two fights with Ankalaev are now, oh, that guy's a bum again. But why? Why? Because Ankalaev beat him twice. The first one's a no contest, should have been an Ankalaev win. The second one was an Ankalaev win. I'm not going to fault Walker. It's just like when you fight the best guys, sometimes you're not going to get the positive result. But when he fights these mid-pack guys, these gatekeeper types, these journeyman types, I think he does way better. I hate to classify Volkan Oezdemir in that category, but to me, he basically is. He starts off his UFC run just like Johnny Walker. He's very exciting. He's knocking guys out. He's taking them out very quickly. They call him no time because, you know, he's got 3 consecutive wins in like less than a minute. It's all good stuff. But at some point, he became over-reliant on that punching power, and he just doesn't throw enough volume. He seems to be plodding, flat-footed, puts way too much weight on his lead leg, and just waits for that one opening. The thing with Walker is he's longer, he's faster, he's more agile and athletic, and I don't think he's going to stand in the pocket and throw down with you. Yeah, the last time out he beats, you know, Guskov, Bogdan Guskov, which I guess has aged okay because Guskov's subsequently won a couple fights, but still, you're taking a guy that probably shouldn't have been in the UFC at that point, who to me was a little bit undersized and doesn't have a ground game that we know about, and he was able to capitalize on it, sure. Prior to that, the Nikita Krylov fight, he got taken down 7 times by Krylov. That's extremely problematic. And who loses a decision to Krylov? Krylov's another one of these, has to finish you in the first round or two, or he's not there anymore. And he did gas out against Volkan, but even completely gassed out, he was still able to just take him down when he needed to. So Volkan doesn't really have the output. He doesn't really have the ground game. He just has that clear punching power. And although it's most definitely possible at this weight class to catch a guy like Johnny Walker and knock him out, it's possible. I prefer Johnny Walker's body of work of staying to the outside, using the kicks, using the jab, using that long distance shots to kind of just pick and plod away at him, cause him to get desperate, cause him to try to advance on you and make a bad move. And at that point, you know, either catch him with a counter, continue to do what you're doing with his point fighting, or mix in the takedown. I think Walker on top could be a problem for Volkan. So I'm going to take Johnny Walker, but the way he fights, and it's 205 division, and Volkan's, you know, known as a power puncher in his own right, I suppose. Like there is some red flags. There's a little bit of uncertainty there, but the pick is going to be Johnny Walker.
Yeah, I think the best play is probably the over 1.5 between the two of these guys in terms of how this fight plays out. I'm not entirely sure. Volkan, I feel like, may even have like a wrestling or grappling advantage, may be able to hold it up against the cage a little bit at range. Walker does a pretty good job of using those long weapons, using the 7-inch reach advantage that he'll have here. So I see a lot of what you're saying there. But for me, it's starting to move. It's like minus 170 in some spots, but I don't know what it may have to do a little bit of line shopping. But over 1.5 at like minus 150 seems like how I would approach this fight. Both of these guys have those finishes on their record, but we've seen a lot more methodical, kind of boring, frankly, approach from them in a lot of their fights. And Volkan has been, you know, knocked out by Daniel Cormier, and the other person who knocked him out, off the top of my head, was Yuri. I mean, those are top guys at 205 pounds. Both of them have shown times that like maybe they're a little bit chinny, but I don't know. I feel like this one just screams boring Johnny Walker. Everyone's kind of we're kind of over the phase where it's like, oh, it's a Johnny Walker fight. It's going to be super exciting. Like they found a way to like probably make his career longevity a little bit more extensive, a little bit longer by making him a little bit more boring.
Same thing happened to Michel Pereira. Keep in mind, he was like, God damn, what is this guy doing? And everybody loves him. But it's like, yeah, you want to stick around for a long time. And like, you get paid. It's not for like that one big fight. You get paid for fighting in the UFC 30 or 40 times because your contract just constantly goes up. So eventually you're getting paid. You ever see those salaries released for the Kentucky cards? Like some of these guys are getting paid 100 grand for no other reason than they're tenured. That's the move. And the only way you're going to do that is rack up fights. Pereira switched from the exciting style to a boring decision style, and he's now found that blend. Walker's trying to find that blend. Maybe it'll be here, maybe it'll be down the road, but I see what he's trying to do, and I do appreciate him trying to evolve.
100%. All right, we move on down. We've got Shara Magomedov taking on Joilton Lutterbach. Minus 250 for Magomedov, plus 210 for Lutterbach. My general theme of this fight, Cody, is size matters. What I want to fade this Magomedov guy at some point down the line, but they have picked an opponent here that I don't think is going to be able to exploit how I think we're going to exploit Shara Magomedov, and that's in the wrestling department. I mean, when Bruno Silva's taken you down 3 times, there are big red flags, big question marks about your ability to stop grappling attempts. But in this situation, they originally set him up against the Ukrainian guy. What's his name again? They originally Ihor Potieria was supposed to be in this spot. Ihor pulls out, and then they find Joilton, and Joilton hasn't been doing MMA for quite a long time now. He's been doing a whole bunch of karate combat and kickboxing matches. He's fought as low as 155 pounds for PFL. So he may have a bit of a striking advantage, but I feel like size does matter. And I guess like by Tapology, they don't seem too different in terms of height, but like if you've been fighting recently at 170 and you fought as low as 155, like Shara must be a hell of a lot thicker than him. So I'll side with Shara Magomedov, but this guy will be faded against someone who can, string together a takedown or two. But Joilton, from everything I can see, isn't that guy. What's your take here?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because you want to bet Shara. We like Shara, but Shara's got a bunch of red flags, man. Like a bunch of red flags. And him only having one eye is not even the biggest red flag. And that should tell you about how many red flags there are surrounding this guy. So yeah, he's fade material, and at some point he's going to run into somebody, but a short notice former lightweight, like you just don't want to believe it. And the guy's been mostly striking lately. So if he wants to strike with Shara, and Shara will be able to use his primary skill set, like again, you want to believe it. But if there's going to be an apple pie shitter this week, it's probably going to be Shara Magomedov because of the price tag. Now again, here's a guy that starts off in Muay Thai. He's just a striker. He starts off in boxing and Muay Thai. No jiu-jitsu, no wrestling. That's his base. He does this for like the majority of his career until he realizes one day, I have no money, I'm broke, none of those stuff pay anything, and he loses an eye. And at that point, it's like, I'm going to switch over to MMA. They gave him the shittiest guys possible to build up this undefeated record prior to him coming over and signing with the UFC. So again, I don't think he's very deep with that. He's got a nasty striking game. He throws a ton of kicks. You saw in his debut, guy throws a ton of kicks. He's hyper aggressive. He's got a decent gas tank. He moves really well, but I don't think he's like his punching power, let's say, I don't think his boxing is all that good. I don't think he's got that really big, right hand that's going to knock a guy out as much as he's just going to batter you with leg kicks, batter you with knees, batter you with elbows, put a constant pace on you. But we've seen these really good strikers recently have no ground game, and it costs you. That Robella's Despang guy, everybody thought, wow, he's Olympic level Taekwondo guy and he's melting all these people and his ground game's probably okay, but it's not. He sucks, and he loses and it's disastrous. Cesar Almeida, I'll give him a little bit more of a pass, but it was the same thing. Oh man, the guy's got to win over Alex Pereira and his ground game's probably getting better, but it's not. It sucks. And Kopilov, of all people, just completely grounds him and neutralizes him. It's extremely problematic. Shara is the exact same thing. He does not have a wrestling base. He does not have a jiu-jitsu base. He moves to Thailand, which is not a country known for their wrestling or their jiu-jitsu, and he's been preparing for these MMA fights. So I don't love it. In the Bruno Silva fight, what he did show is Bruno is also a striker. He's a banger, Evolucio Thai guy. And yeah, he did a really good job of sticking and moving and kicking him and just out-volleying him and outworking him and frustrating him. And he looks like a good, but not great, striker. Bruno just gets frustrated and is like, you know what? I'm going to just take him down because I'm tired of chasing him around. I can't quite get my hands on him. I'm just going to shoot a takedown and see what's up. And got it easy. And Shara at no point attempts to get up. He's not trying to create space. He's not trying to hip out. He's completely content with lying on his back and throwing up elbows and throwing up short punches, which is badass, but it's not smart. You even see at one point, he throws his leg up, okay? He's got it over the shoulder. He can lock in a triangle choke. He doesn't even know what the triangle choke is. He instead sits there with his leg across the shoulder, smashing him with fucking elbows and punches again. So I just think he has no ground game. I would say he has no ground game, okay? In the third round, he did manage one get up. I will give him that. Up against the cage, he's able to get back up to a hip. But against any like college wrestler guy that wanted to stick to a game plan, against a Brady Heastan minded kid that would just stick to that type of game plan, he is not going to have any type of success. Now, why he matches up good with Lutterbach on paper is because Lutterbach's a former lightweight. As you said, he's taken the fight on short notice, as you mentioned. And yeah, he's been mostly just been doing kickboxing and karate combat. Like he's been flirting with doing some pro boxing as well. He just loves to fight. He's fought for a bunch of promotions. He's fought a pile of good level opponents. He's a 50-fight veteran, Brazilian guy now living out of Germany. He's been there. He's done that. He's not afraid to go out there and mix it up with people. So if you're thinking former lightweight on short notice, jumping in there against, you know, a guy that's one hell of a striker and Shara Magomedov, then Shara probably beats him. It's the ground game thing. It's the ground game thing. So Joilton, as much as he has been doing striking lately, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's a Judo black belt. He's a Luta Livre black belt. The guy just likes to fight. He will fight anybody in any style, in any discipline. And it's not lost on him. So Sherdog did an interview with, you know, new signee Joilton Lutterbach, and he mentions, I'm a black belt in Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Luta Livre. From what he showed in his fight with Bruno Blindau Silva, my superior on the ground is clear over him. If I take him down, there will not be a fight. Since my biggest focus nowadays is putting on a show, that's a red flag. Don't put on a show. Just take the guy down. But he wants to put on a show. I want to show in this UFC debut that I'm superior than him standing up. There's your red flag. He won't make it past the second round. I'll sub-zero him in the second round. So on one hand, if he does take him down, he's got a clear advantage. On the other hand, he's a 50-fight veteran who's been mostly standing up lately, who's moved up 2 full weight classes and wants to put on a show and chase a $50,000 bonus. I don't think he's going to stick to his grappling.
Yeah.
And so Shara probably wins the fight. He's going to outwork him. He's got heavier shots, better kicking arsenal, you know, better range game. Not on short notice. Shara's going to beat him. Last but not least, with Joilton Lutterbach, you mentioned, you know, the guy had fought on PFL. He lost to our boy Clay Collard, who's fighting this weekend at 155 pounds. He actually missed weight and came in at 159 against Clay. Okay, but if you watch that fight back, I honestly thought that Joilton Lutterbach won. If you watch his fight with Rush Manfio, okay, he loses a split decision to Rush Manfio, and Manfio ends up going to the finals for $1 million. Does he not? He wins $1 million. He wins $1 million in the tournament, right? So he got not robbed. He lost a split decision in a fight I thought he won over Rush Manfio. Manfio ends up winning $1 million. He loses a contentious split decision over Clay Collard. Clay Collard's one of PFL's bigger stars. Yep. And a good fighter. You know, it's not any real indication. But after that, he does 55. He does 165. He does 170. He does 176. He does 179. He flirts with middleweight, but never commits to it. He was going to fight Charlie Ontiveros on Karate Combat at 170. And he bombed weight. He came in at like 8 pounds overweight. And Charlie said, no, I'm not going to fight him. For the record, Charlie ended up fighting Brandon Jenkins, who was a pool boy at Circa Pool Sports. The pool boy took the fight on short notice with Charlie and kicked it. Charlie put a beating on Brandon Jenkins in that first round, which is not uncommon for Jenkins. But then Jenkins knocks him out in the second. The fact that Joilton was supposed to fight at 170, couldn't make the weight. Then he's going to fight a boxing match against this Adrian Brzezinski. And then he gets signed to the UFC. And now he's at 185. If he does not stick to a grappling-based game plan, he'll just find a way to blow it. And all of these red flags in his side are pointing me in the direction of he's not going to use it. So I'll take Shara, but because of the price, because of like the line, Shara seems like a safe play. People like him this week. I get it. I get it all. I see the world that exists where he's our apple pie shitter for no other reason than Joilton takes him down a couple times. So there's most definitely a buyer beware here, guys.
Makes sense to me. All right, we got Nasrat Haqparast taking on Jared Gordon. Nasrat, minus 240 favorite. Gordon can be had for plus 200. Who you got?
Yeah, another close fight, I suppose. I feel like I got Haqparast, and I just don't really know why. His takedown defense is okay. His striking's okay. You see him struggle the most when he takes on superior strikers to him. So his losses being Bobby Green, a slick striker, Dan Hooker, what we all know, Drew Dober back in the day. Those guys are capable of standing up with him, giving him problems, causing him cause for concern. When he's not comfortable, then you can catch him with something. Guys that have gone with a game plan of just taking him down and grinding him, and I mean, Hooker took him down 3 times and beat him up pretty good on the ground. But for the most part, like his takedown defense is seemingly checked out. Now, I'm not a fan of his because he seems to just fight to his level, the level of his opposition. If you're a mid-level guy and you're going through the motions, he seems to go through the motions with you. He coming off a win over Jamie Malarkey by knockout, but don't let that fool you. He's not really a power puncher.
No.
He throws steam on all of his punches, but it does not materialize into knockout wins for the most part. And so Jared Gordon, a guy that's I honestly think is a chinny fighter. I don't know that Haqparast chin checks him as much as he should, and he could. He hasn't really shown it, but I will give him this 3-fight winning streak. He gets outworked by John McDessie, but he dropped him. His fight with Landon Quinones, they went toe-to-toe and through sickening volume. He outstruck him 171 to 148. But he got hit 148 times against Landon Quinones. So, like, it's all problematic to me. And then, yeah, whatever. He knocks out Jamie Malarkey. That tends to happen in Jamie Malarkey fights, but with Haqparast, like it looks good, 3-fight winning streak, but I can't get out of my mind that I don't think he's that big of a power puncher. He tends to get outworked. His grappling's okay, but not great. Like he's very much just like a generalist type guy. I wouldn't even call him a top 15. If he is, he's a fringe 15, kind of a gatekeeper at this stage of his career. Jared Gordon, meanwhile, it's just like there's not enough there at this point. Used to fight at 145 pounds, and that to me, that this is key here. Is that Gordon's a former 145er, that he's got some health issues. He's had a crazy life. Dude died of a drug overdose once upon a time. He's been hard on his body. He's had a lot of injuries, so he's moved up to 55. When you watch him compete, his athleticism's not quite there. He doesn't move all that good. He's not like a clean athlete. He doesn't have this big ability to go from 0 to 60 and explode into something. He's more so one of these guys that can wear on you. He's rugged. He's tough, and that'll get him some places, but he himself runs into a lot of trouble. He looked okay his last time out against Mark Madsen, knocking him out in the first round, catching him a beautiful right hand at the tail end of it. But his 2 fights prior to that, Bobby Green, headbutt, fired that Paddy Pimblett. Everyone will say it's a robbery, but he doesn't really do anything. He just pins Paddy up against the cage for the most part and, believes that in itself is winning the fight. I'm not going to say it wasn't a robbery. It really wasn't. It was just a slow-paced, bad fight. I thought he won. I thought Jared Gordon won, but I don't know that I scream robbery because it's not like Gordon really did anything. He just did more than Paddy, which was absolutely nothing. So he probably should have won that fight, but he didn't. And then the one part of that, Grant Dawson just beat the crap out of him, took him down 7 times, ragdolled him, hurt him, ends up choking him out in the 3rd round. So he has a knack for sticking around and keeping a roster spot, and he can step up and he can beat guys. And when it looks like, maybe he's all the way done, he comes back with that one key victory. But to me, there's not enough. Yes, he can still hang with relevant, young, talented guys as much as if they want to give him an aged guy. I believe Mark Madsen retired right after the fight. Leonardo Santos is retired. Joe Selecki looked god-awful his last fight. Should retire if he hasn't. Danny Chavez, I believe, is retired. Chris Fishgold, bare-knuckle boxing in the UK. Dan Moret's my boy, but never made it at like the high level. It's like all of his wins over guys that shouldn't have a spot on the roster. Whereas Nasrat, he's the real gatekeeper. He deserves to have a roster spot. He could beat fringe 15 guys on his best day. He's just never going to be a top 10 guy. He's never going to be a contender. Neither will Gordon. How do they match up with each other? Again, to me, it comes back to the 145 for Gordon. Gordon at 145 is a lot more rugged. BJJ brown belt. He's got good cardio, and he can just really put that pace on you. At 155, he will attempt to do the same thing with Nasrat. He's going to try to bully him. He's going to try to press him in the cage. He's going to try to outwork him. But I feel like Nasrat's got the better boxing. Him being the bigger guy should be able to keep him upright. And if he just uses his footwork and his speed a little bit, he should be able to pot shot away at Jared Gordon. Maybe hurt him with something. Again, he throws hard. And he's coming off a knockout win, I guess. But, I don't know. I don't think Nasrat's that great of a power puncher. So probably a Haqparast decision. If it's bad judging, which you never know with judges these days, like this is another candidate for a split decision type spot because Gordon's probably going to have control time versus the superior punching and kicking of Haqparast. But the line is what scares you off. The pick's Haqparast, the line scares you off because it's not as easy as this line would indicate that it probably should be.
Yeah, Gordon, I mean, that wrestling game of his was so much more impressive at 145. Like when he first broke into the UFC, he was when we were playing like DraftKings, DFS.
He was the man.
He was the man because he was just like spamming takedowns, just had crazy cardio, was getting late finishes, that type of thing. At 155, that hasn't really translated to the same degree. There's like big question marks with Nasrat a lot of the times. Like the Quinones fight was razor close. He pulled out the decision victory there, but like significant, like getting landed on like over 140 times against Landon Quinones. Not the greatest scene whatsoever. I tend to echo a lot of the same stuff as you. Is that like maybe Gordon can get the odd takedown, but I don't know if he's gonna have like tons of control time. We're in the part of the world where a German from originally or with like Afghani roots may have a slight edge if there is any sort of home cooking. We are in the right type of world for it. Minus 240 is not great, but Haqparast can put up the volume. Even if it's like, 120, 100, it's relatively close. I don't know. I agree with you. It's like I don't love laying minus 240 with Haqparast. I do see a world in which this is really close and you get like a split decision, but it'll be my pick as well. We got Rinat Fakhretdinov minus 350 taking on Nicolas Dalby. He can be had for plus 285. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on this one too. So it's like Dalby's a hella underdog again, and this is where he shines the brightest is when people write him off and he comes through. So like I think he's live again with Fakhretdinov. He is very physically strong. He's a guy that muscles, I think, most of his takedown attempts, but at his best, he can ragdoll you around. And he's also got a nasty right hand. He's generally pressing forward. He's generally, pushing the pace. And I think that there's admirable qualities to his game. And he's not the complete package, man. So again, you look at him in his first two fights, he takes down Andreas Michailidis 5 times and goes to decision with him. And then he takes down Brian Battle 7 times and goes to decision with him. Yeah, he's got a wrestling game, but neither of those guys are good wrestlers for the record. And he takes them down. He grinds them from top position. His standing is a little bit robotic, but it's serviceable. He gets Kevin Lee. He doesn't even need to take Kevin Lee down. Kevin Lee is a shot version of himself on the way out. Pretty sure retires right after this fight. Opens up a restaurant for the record. Check out Kevin Lee's restaurant. But yeah, Fakhretdinov catches him in a guillotine. So it's 3 fights to start off a UFC career. It looks good, but I'm not seeing enough substance. Like, what if he was to get stuffed? What if he was have to switch to a plan B? That's what happens against Aliskerov dos Santos. Now, people will say, well, he won the first 2 rounds. And then, yeah, that's fair. He did win the first 2 rounds. But the bottom line is that he completely gassed out. He went 1 for 9 on takedown attempts. He wasn't even coming close. And he's shooting these things from way far out. This guy's not a good wrestler, as much as he is a very physically strong man from Russia who, if he gets a hold of you, could probably throw you to the ground. When you look at levels and championship accolades, like, again, I think he leaves a little bit to be desired. And not being able to take down Aliskerov dos Santos was problematic because now he's got to stand with him. Now, to his credit, he mixes in the takedowns with a little bit of control time. He lands that right hand. He presses forward, and he does win the first 2 rounds, but he overexerts himself and he gasses. So his plan B, which is just swang and bang if the takedowns don't work, is not a great plan B because it's not something he was really able to stick to. Cardio shouldn't be a problem. You went to decision with Michailidis and Brian Battle, no problem. And yet when he faced a little bit of resistance, his game started to fall apart. Dalby's quite literally made his career on that. He's getting his ass kicked by Darren Till back in the day. Till dislocates his shoulder. Dalby turns it on. He 10-8s him in the 3rd round. Got himself a draw. Since then, it's been much of the same, dude. He lost the first round against Warley Alves. Came back and beat him on a split decision. He lost the first round to Muslim Salikov. Came back and beat him by unanimous decision. And he lost the first round his last time out against Gabriel Bonfim. two judges had the first round of 10-8 for Bonfim.
Mm-hmm.
And Dalby comes back and he wins the fight. Second round knockout. If that fight would have gotten to a third round, which it wouldn't have because Bonfim was absolutely dead, Dalby wasn't going anywhere. And you know what? He is an absolute inspiration. That the dude was a self-admitted alcoholic whose career spiraled down the toilet. He gets his life back together. The UFC releases him. He's gone something like, I don't know, 9-2 or something since his release, got sober. And though he's 39 years old, which I don't love at this weight class, he's living his life the way of the martial arts, the way healthy and he's vibrant again and he wants to fight and he wants to compete and he gives it his 100% every time out. So when I think about Fakhretdinov, it's like the takedowns should be there. Like Dalby's only rocking a 60% takedown defense. He got taken down 3 times by Bonfim. He got taken down twice by Muslim Salikov. Got taken down 4 times by Claudio Silva. Once by Warley Alves. Once by Tim Means. That's 5 straight fights that he's given up at least 1 takedown. Back in the day, Cowboy Oliveira took him 3 times. Peter Sabata took him down 3 times. Zach Cummins took him down. The guy's takedown defense is an issue of his. Fakhretdinov is going to take him down. Yeah, he went 1 for 9 his last time out. He probably will take him down early. It's that, what do you do with the takedown? Because Dalby's not just going to accept it. He's a BJJ black belt. He works. He tries to improve position. He tries to get back up. When he is back up, he's a better striker. He's a more volume puncher. He should stay in the pocket and just kind of push Fakhretdinov back. And then you're relying on the judges. Do they like the 3 or 4 takedowns from Fakhretdinov, or do they like the guy that's fighting the entire time and working his way back up and landing the short punches and actually trying to make a competitive bout out of this? To me, it's like if it's a 50-50 fight, then yeah, the takedowns and the control time and the younger guy, and yeah, I'll take Rinat Fakhretdinov. But the bottom line is, if I got to trust judges, or what are they looking at, control time or damage? Because damage should come towards Dalby. Last but not least is the third round, right? Fakhretdinov's cardio isn't deep. Dalby's third round is his best rounds. If this thing's 1-1 going into the third, you're screwed. You have to be up 2-0. And then even in that scenario, you better hope you don't get finished or get 10-8'd, which is exactly what happened to Fakhretdinov his last time out. Now, since his last fight, he decided to take a jiu-jitsu match with Craig Jones, which was very ill-advised. And a joke, dude. He got subbed so quick. Unconscious. They have to wake him up off the mat. And I think it was like a minute and a half. So what is he good at? Good wrestler? I don't think so. Good jiu-jitsu guy? No. Good striker? No. Good cardio? Good pace? Okay, but not great. And they're trying to feed you this kind of price tag on him. So I'm probably the idiot that will pay that price tag on him. But like, again, if you're looking for apple pie shitters and guys that are just like way overpriced, or you're a value boy and you're looking for some of these dogs that, have nice big plus money price tags and have legitimate path to victories and will fight for your dollar, Dalby hits a lot of boxes for sure. But the takedowns and the being 39 and the me being a coward, like I feel like I end up siding with Fakhretdinov still. So I'm undecided on that one. I want to see weigh-ins. I want to check out a few more things, but because I have to make a pick on the show right at this exact moment, I'll take the coward's way out and take Fakhretdinov, but bad price tag.
Yeah, I think Dalby makes for a great live bet. Because, I have no doubt in my mind, Fakhretdinov's going to get everyone who wants to take down Dalby over the course of his entire career, and we've got a big sample size at this point. Everyone who really wants to take him down takes him down. So he's going, Fakhretdinov is going to get takedowns. So, betting the plus 285 for a guy like Dalby, outside of, finishing Bonfim last time out, and that was more of obviously like a gassing type of situation than anything else. The guy doesn't really have pop in his hands. He hasn't been a potent finisher at any point in his career really. But he's tough and he's situationally sound, right? He just kind of stays out of trouble. He bides his time. He's always looking for a way to get back up to his feet. He'll fight at a high pace and yeah, so I expect Fakhretdinov to get takedowns early and often and probably be a minus 1,200 favorite or something late in round 2. If you see signs of him gassing out, if Dalby is able to keep a pace up and get up and constantly Brian Battle, that fight was pretty rough because Brian Battle was taken down 7 times over the course of that fight, but really didn't put up any sort of resistance. He had 3 significant strikes in that fight. Looks pretty impressive for Rinat, to be perfectly honest at this point. Like, Brian Battle is a guy who's kind of coming into his own, so being able to dominate Brian Battle like that over the course of 15 minutes is kind of impressive. But yeah, it's like at this price, with the potential for gassing, it'll be dog or pass for a pick from me, but I have no intentions of betting Dalby pre-flop. He will be someone I'm anxiously, very, very closely watching this fight, how it plays out, and maybe get like a really, really wide line on Nicolas Dalby, because wouldn't be shocked like after round 1, like Rinat gets a ton of takedowns, has like 4 minutes of control time, and he's like minus 1,000 already, because that's how it is in the MMAs. Moving on down, we've got Muin Gafurov taking on Mr. Perfect Kyung Kang. Minus 160 for Muin Gafurov, plus 140 for Mr. Perfect. It's gotta be Kyung Kang here, right, Cody?
I agree.
Mr. Perfect, decent cardio. Muin Gafurov, not the greatest grappler by any stretch of the imagination, and a known gasser. Seems like a pretty clear underdog kind of situation here. The more I kind of think about this fight, they've both, it's a mixed bag of wins and losses for both of them, to be perfectly honest. They both lost to John Castaneda, so that's a matching opponent of theirs. The durability, I feel like, has never left Mr. Perfect. He's going to force you to fight a hard 15 minutes, or at least a moderate pace 15 minutes. And because of that situation, because he's plus 140, it's got to be Mr. Perfect for me. It sounds like it is for you too.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Again, underdogs didn't come through. I think he's a decent looking one. With Muin Gafurov, he's kind of always been a little bit of a letdown. One championship signed him back to the day. He was supposed to be, this big time prospect, and he was a big underdog, lost to a guy named Reese McLaren. And then his very next fight, he's a massive underdog, loses to a guy named Kevin Bellington. So a local Australian and Filipino fighter, respectively. One championship essentially parts ways with him because he's a bust. He comes back and he fights John Lineker for one championship. Whereas it's like, dude, lost to John Lineker, it's no big deal. The fight's at 145, and John Lineker's a 125er. So I know Muin's dropped down since, but he couldn't take down Lineker. He could not stand with Lineker. I don't know what he does great. He's another one of your typical Tajikistan fighters that's very, very physically strong. He's very passionate. He's going to throw big-time heat. He's got a bit of a combat sambo type background, and he prefers to wrestle, but he puts everything into every move. He's not really found that rhythm yet, and that ability to fight a slower type pace, so to speak. You've seen him on the Ultimate Fight or on the Contender Series. This is now the third step up for him. The third time he gets that crack. On the Contender Series, he fights Chan Annaledger, Canadian fighter. He's a minus 450 favorite over Chad Annaledger. He takes him down 5 times. He said he doesn't do anything with the takedowns. There's no real ground and pound. There's no real submission threat. Chan Ledger gets back up routinely. He outstrikes him. He outworks him. He knocks him down. And he cashes as a monster-sized 36-year-old underdog. Dana's like, oh, man, I'll just give you the contract because you're a massive underdog. No one thought you were going to win. I'll sign you to the UFC. It was cool. But it was another bad spot for Gafurov. Eventually does sign in the UFC. And John Castaneda did 2 things well. John Castaneda met his aggressiveness. He outworked him, and he would mix in the takedown. So Gafurov's best weapon, which is his offensive wrestling, was completely nullified against Castaneda. He's getting constantly backed up. He's getting beat to the punch. He's getting outworked. He got outstruck 60-40, largely off his back foot, and drops a decision. His fight with Said Nurmagomedov, whatever. It's Said Nurmagomedov, and it's done before it starts. Quick guillotine choke, not the end of the world. This fight with Kyung Kang, though, so he's a little bit older, but it's not like he's long in the tooth. He does have, this will be his 30th pro fight. He is 36 years old, turning 37 in a couple months, but he took a couple years off due to military service in Korea. So it's not like he's got that rigor and that long damage. You saw Korean Zombie do the same thing, take a couple years off due to military service, come back and fight some competitive fights since he's come back. Mr. Perfect's doing the exact same thing. Plus, you shouldn't look at his 37 as a North American 37. The guy's South Korean. So oftentimes you'll see these K-pop bands, it's a 23-year-old, but he's actually a 40-year-old man. They age very, very well. And the guy's named Mr. Perfect. So what do you think? He's one of these guys that ages very well. Very athletic, moves well, good footwork. He likes his offensive wrestling. He's an excellent grappler, BJJ black belt. The problem is that he's not the most physically strong guy as much as he's got, good technique. So he will get taken to the ground by stronger guys. His own fight with John Castaneda, he gave up 3 takedowns. But I'll be damned, his get-up game is solid. It's hard to hold the guy down. And when he gets back up, he's long, he's rangy. He fights way straighter, more linear than a guy like Muin Gafurov, who's largely going to be winging 1 shot at a time, winging 2 shots at a time, trying to crash the pocket. Mr. Perfect can move laterally, jump out of harm's way, use his jab, use his long-range weaponry, and even mix in a takedown or 2 if need be. If he does get taken down, which is certainly possible, it's all about getting back up. If you do eat one of these giant overhand rights, which is certainly possible, show that same chin you've had throughout the majority of your career because he's got good durability. And then the cardio would be the key. Gafurov's a guy that's been known to gas. Kang's been a known to guy that thrives the longer the fight goes. They'll tell you, the judges will tell you his 30-27 loss to Castaneda. Like he lost all 3 rounds. But there was not one blowout round. This is a very competitive fight. He just happens to be getting outworked a little bit and giving up a few takedowns. Gafurov is not going to land 100 significant strikes on him the way Castaneda did and mix in those takedowns and fight a complete 15-minute performance. So all that's problematic to me. I see the slight plus money for Kyoho Kang, and I agree with it. I think he's an excellent pick, and he'll be the selection.
Kang decision is like plus 250.
That would actually be the way to go.
Split decision, Cody.
I like that
Because
too,
we're
dude.
in Riyadh, and
I like that too.
you smell that? A little bit of home cooking.
smell
I mean,
that.
they'll bring. I don't think Saudi Arabia has a commission, so it'll be like all of the Vegas guys over there. I would assume.
Getting paid by Saudi money.
I would assume.
So
but
who
I
does the
don't know
Saudi
that for
money
sure.
want to win? Even in that event, if you're going to bet Gafurov, a Gafurov split decision makes sense. A Kang split decision makes sense. It's going to be a competitive decision type fight. But yeah, again, Kang's ability to get back up and then use his superior striking should edge that out for him.
100%. All right, we got Magomed Gadzhiyasulov taking on Brendson Ribeiro. Gadzhiyasulov can be had for minus 310. Ribeiro can be had for plus 260. On Contender Series, Magomed's opponent was that Medina guy who he's actually fighting Zach Reese in an upcoming, I think in August or something like that. They finally booked him to a fight. He was the guy, if you watched last season, Dana was like, even though you lost and you lost every single minute of that fight, I like this guy's warrior spirit, and he gave him a contract. It was a bit of a strange type of situation, but he did show some ability to get back to his feet and so on and so forth. But yeah, Magomed absolutely, skill for skill, it wasn't really particularly competitive. He's got some, he tried a Showtime kick at one point, jumping off of the cage. He's got some decent fundamentals. He fights pretty long. He was able to get 6 takedowns in that fight, but he did not he's from Dagestan, but he did not strike me as a guy with your Habib style, dominance, Dagestan or Sambo champion type of style of wrestling. Now maybe that speaks more to what Medina is capable of. But either way, I wasn't all that impressed with the performance. He won very, very cleanly. Here he is in the UFC, but my struggle with him is the strikes that he did land, he was cutting them up a little bit, but nothing seemed to be so powerful that there would be knockouts. And then you have Brendson Ribeiro kind of working his way in here. I think this guy's pretty brutal. He looks he looks absolutely terrifying. Guy's super, super big, jacked, wing shots from his hip. And that's where he's slightly dangerous. I think skill for skill, this fight's not even remotely close. But, the line says that the fight's not remotely close. The danger here is that Ribeiro's literally just a Brazilian banger. He beat that undefeated prospect to get himself into the UFC. And every single time, like in his fights, he basically just wants to hang out in the pocket and slang and bang. His chin isn't great. He's been knocked out a whole bunch of times. I saw people like I saw there was like a line with like Brendson Ribeiro round 1 knockout plus 1,800, which is what it opened up to.
What?
It opened up as that and got pounded down to like 10 to 1 now. Down to 10 to 1 now.
Okay.
We'll see where I would not fault anybody in taking that as a prop in this fight, because like that is probably his only win condition here. I think Gadzhiyasulov wins here. I don't rate Ribeiro all that much, but I don't know. It is dangerous early on because Ribeiro's going to come in swinging, so it's kind of the coward's way out. I'll take the favorite in Magomed Gadzhiyasulov, but it could get real dicey early. What's your take here?
Yeah, okay. I got a greasy take on this one. Where I think, Gadzhiyasulov wins, but the over 1.5. So the over 1.5 is like plus 200. You're right. It's crazy. And you know me, we talk about this every week. These over 1.5s, man, it's like it's very difficult to just know the guy's gonna get folded up really quick. And you can believe it all you want. But we even had this exact same conversation last week. What was the fight? Because I ended up going the distance. Quinlan versus Fugit, I think. It was like absolutely steamed to the under 1.5. They offered you a nice price on the over 1.5. And again, the fight goes 15 full minutes. A lot of these fights will go 15 full minutes, but the over 1.5, I get myself in trouble with the 2.5. Sure. The 1.5 is nice. Now, why is it 1.5? Well, because both the guys are finishers, right? I mean, you got Brendson Ribeiro, where basically his win condition is first round knockout. When he loses, it's also generally first round knockout. His last 3 losses are all, you guessed it, first round knockout. He has got a majority decision loss and then 2 submission losses. Never has he made it to over 1.5 in any of his losses except for 1, which was that majority decision. So right there, you're not looking good. It's like, oh, the guy never does it. But keep in mind, it's like he's a banger. If you stand in front of him and he hits you, you're going to go down. If you return fire standing and hit him, he's going to go down. But Magomed's not really like that. He generally gets to his wrestling. Keep in mind, this is a guy that was 10-4 as an amateur, okay? Of his 10 amateur wins, 8 of them were by decision. His pro record, 0-0, who he went to decision with, 0-2 he finishes, 1-2 he finishes, 0-3 he finishes, 0-0, now he's 5-0 at this point, fighting an 0-0 guy, finishes. Then Tapology red flags him. They're like, dude, this guy, this Vlad Uruskanov, he doesn't exist. It's not a real person, okay? And they said that he fought him and that he had beaten him. So Tapology flags Kizza Fight League and says, hey, any guy that's competed for Kizza Fight League, we don't recognize it as a legitimate win. They tried to talk to the promotion. It's a shady promotion. It's a fake fight. What's notable, though, is that 2 fights before he fights for KFL, which, as you guess, is Kizza Fight League. It's the same thing. They just changed the name. So those are 2 illegitimate wins, so to speak. And then, yeah, okay, I'll give him, he signs with Brave, and they gave him a guy with a soul, Mohamed Said Salem, who's an Algerian striker, who's not great. And, again, he goes to decision with him because the guy's got a heartbeat. And then they put him on the Contender Series. He's a minus 850 against an undersized Bolivian guy, I'm pretty sure. And he also just lies on top of him. 6 takedowns, 15 minutes of control time, another decision. So he's a decision machine. And it doesn't really matter that Brendson Ribeiro is made out of glass, is that if you stand and you smack him in the face, he will shatter. If you take him down and hold him down and grind up on his leg and mat return and suck the arm out, but I don't want to give up this rear waist body lock. So instead of unclasping my hands to punch him, I'll just keep this lock tight. How are you going to finish him? And then all of a sudden time starts to tick away. And all of a sudden the over 1.5 hits. So at plus 200, Ribeiro's a glass cannon. Let's get that straight.
Yeah.
I don't know that Gadzi, who's largely falsified his record to get himself into the UFC, 8 of 10 amateur fights had gone to decision. And the only time he fights guys with a pulse in MMA, those 3 fights have also in pro have gone to decision. He's a decision guy. And whereas you could say, well, he's finding his rhythm and he's going to get better. He's 30 years old, dog. So It's not for him. He's going to get flat out exposed, just not right now. How can we attack this and get a better price on it? I think he wins. I don't love the money line. If you want to get greasy with it, the over 1.5 at plus 200 certainly got some value.
Yeah. I thought you were going to be like, if you want to get greasy with it, him by decision. And I'd be like, that may be asking a little bit much. Because, like, Jose Medina, at least in fairness, was Mexican.
Was tough.
Guy had a hell of a chin.
Was he Mexican? I don't think he was Mexican.
You know what? That could be a mistake by me. I'm going to find out.
You're typecasting him. He's Bolivian. Oh. But he's never been knocked out. It's pretty close. Pretty close.
100%. All right, finally, we got Long Zhao taking on Chang Ho Lee. Long Zhao is minus 115 favorite. Chang Ho Lee minus 105. It's pretty much a straight pick. This is the finals of the road to the UFC. Do you have a hot take here, Cody? I don't even know who these people are yet. I really don't.
Yeah, I definitely don't have a hot take, so to speak. But I'm gonna go with Zhao Long. Yeah, dude, he's 26 years old. He's a 35 fight veteran. So you saw with Shernday Nurmbiake last week, who's a 30-year-old 50 fight veteran. It don't matter. But it's good that he's keeping active. And what I like about him is that he fought on the Contender Series 2021 against Christian Quinones, went to decision, competitive fight, to be honest with you. And he was 21 years old at the time. So he was supposed to be one of those. Remember, it was an episode of Contender Series, had 3 or 4 Chinese prospects. He was supposed to be one of the good ones. And at 21, he was just a little bit green still. So they release him. He's gone on a hell of a good run to land himself back onto a road to the UFC. And since then, this Shohei Nose was considered one of the tournament favorites, so to speak. He's a very good grappler. Nose takes him down 4 times, but he's got a solid get-up game. And to me, that was the difference. He's able to get back up, and he used his superior striking accolade to beat up Nose. Takes a split decision. I thought the right man won. He outstruck him. He was getting back up. He mixed in a few takedowns of his own. Is he a world-class fighter, Paul? No. He's a young Chinese fighter, but he was doing the right things. His next fight against Shuya Kumikubo. Kumikubo is a hell of a wrestler. Boy can't strike, but the boy can wrestle, and he's got cardio, and he chain wrestles, and he sticks to it like a dog on a bone. And he does take Long down 3 times, but Long got a good get-up game, and so he does the same thing. He gets back up, and then he uses that space to outstrike him. He lands 109 significant strikes, outstruck him 109 to 57, while giving up the 3 takedowns. So, again, he's still only 26. He fought once in Vegas already on the Contender Series. He got to see Dana. He got to feel the experience. He came up short by decision. Although he was competitive, he went back to the drawing board. He got a winning streak. He jumps into this tournament. He took on 2 good grapplers. He got up. He stuffed takedowns, and he outstruck them. He's still only 26. He's heading in the right direction. I like him. Jung Ho Lee, it's really nothing against him, but his first guy that he fought, this Rana Rudra Praten Sai. Oh my God, Paul. Oh my God. This video hopefully will get 8,500 views, and 8,000 of those people could beat this guy. Like, he is bad. But he beats him. So now you've got the easiest first round matchup of the tournament. Homeboy, you're fighting had to take on the tournament favorite, Shohei Nose. But no, you got a layup. And then in his second fight against this, probably going to pronounce it wrong, this Dermisi Zaubasi, I don't know, man. The fight is just scrambles. He gives up 6 he got taken down 6 times by the guy. He himself got 4 takedowns. They are just clashing. They are scrambling. They're taking each other down. They're getting back up. They're going balls to the walls. And then this Saupazi guy just flat gasses out because he's not good. And you can't fight that kind of game plan unless you've done it before, and you've done it multiple times, and you train in the gym. And this is road to the UFC, Holmes. This is not LFA or PFL or Bellator. Like, it's not a high level tournament. It's guys that are rookies on rookie contracts fighting each other. So he capitalizes on a second opponent that's just not that good. Now, when I look at him versus Long, on one hand, he would be the best striker Long's fought. That Kumikubo can't really strike. Nose really can't strike. So in that sense, yes, it's the best striker that Long's fought. But he predominantly relies on his wrestling. He wants to take guys down. Even his last fight, he gets taken down 6 times. He gets 4 takedowns. And eventually he gets on top of the guy and he ground and pounds him. So that's where he wants to be. His striking, although better than the rest of the guys Long's fought, is still not great. So to me, how does this fight play out? Well, he'll probably be searching for the takedowns. But if Kamikubo is not getting them successfully, or he's not holding the guy down, then I don't think he's going to either. And so when Long inevitably gets back up to his feet, he's going to do just like he did against those guys, which is chop him up, piece him up, land some shots, make those slightly more efficient, more effective blows get through, and then have the judges like that. I don't think that Lee's going to gas the same way maybe that some of the other guys have in the past. But again, his road to the tournament finals have been taking on two of the easier guys in the tournament, whereas Long has fought the two better guys. He's a 35 fight veteran. He's already had a contender series appearance. So he's got that experience on top of it. And he's got the sprawl and brawl. He will get taken down, but he will get back up. And when he gets back up, that's where you'll see the difference. So yeah, it's a 50-50 fight. Sure. Can you expect? Yeah, probably not much. Long is doing the right things to put himself into where he needs to be. And he's earned his way there as far as I'm concerned. I think he's going to be victorious and pick up a UFC contract.
So what you're saying is Zhao has taken the long road to the UFC.
What you see with a lot of Chinese fighters, and I mentioned Shailin Numbriaki last time out, and that, like, remember, what was his name? Zhu Rong? Remember Zhu Rong? Kid's like 20 years old. He had like 30 fights. Like they fight entirely too much. But they do keep active. You do see different styles. You do learn things. And sometimes you'll see a Chinese fighter lose, like, oh man, how did he lose to this guy? And then 2-3 fights later, it's like, oh shit, he hit his stride. So losing is part of learning, and he did that. They tried to sign him when he was 21. He's way too young. He lost to Christian Quinones. Do you think he should be signed to the UFC? No. But he does everything right since then to get himself back here. Lee, again, it's really no knock on Lee. I mean, it's not like he asked to be given the easy path to the tournament finals. It's that he is 30 years old, and to this point, I mean, he's low for these big quality wins. Brave had briefly signed him to a one-fight deal, but he lost to Sim Kai Xiong, another Chinese fighter who was 3-0, where he couldn't get him down and effectively use his wrestling. So, that fight's less than 2 years ago, or it is actually 2 years ago. And since then, he's had 3 fights over the course of 2 years, and it's been a very much subpar competition. So, Long Zhao. I'm surprised Long Zhao is not a slight favorite. It's more of an even money fight. I'd expect Long Zhao to be, minus 145, let's say. But again, is that right? It's basically even money. Either guy could win. They just got to fight the proper game plan. We can't get in there with them, right? We can only speculate what is the proper game plan, and will they utilize it? In this case, the proper game plan is sprawl and brawl. If you do get taken down, get back up and get back to that volume-based attack, which I think he'll do.
Doesn't sound like there's any Rinya Nakamura's on this season.
That's a legitimate fighter. That's a legitimate prospect. And whereas I kind of shit on Tatsu Taira a little bit, Taira doesn't have the wrestling. Like, at least Nakamura's got some legitimate wrestling in his back pocket. That's what's going to carry him. Taira, they'll give him, I don't know. He'll probably end up proving me wrong and winning 3-4 more fights in a row, but he's going to hit a brick wall at some point. I don't think he's going to be a champion anytime soon. Luckily for him, he's 24 years old. So give him 3, 4, 5 years, and he could be very, very good.
Nice. All right, we're just about out of time. But before we go, hit him with the PRP code.
Yeah, this week's PRP, 11 fight card. We're going to go with Robbie Whittaker at the top, Alexander Volkov, underdog, Kelvin Gastelum, Shara Magomedov. That one we could look so stupid on. Okay. But I got to go with it. Johnny Walker, Nasrat, Haqparast. I'm going to go with Felipe Lima. I'm going to go with Rinat, Fakhretdinov. That one we can make him look bad too, but it is what it is. Kang, Magomed, Gadzhiyasulov. If you want to chase a plus money play on that, maybe that over 1.5 seems to make sense anyways. And then we're going to go with Long Zhao. So as much as it's like greasy card, dogs are barking, a couple of these guys could definitely shit in the apple pie. It's a lot of like more so even money plays, and those even money plays, if you can get them to go in your favor, will add a ton of value. So best of luck to everybody. But again, the good news is that there's more than just UFC this weekend. So hopefully PFL is good. And there's a couple other junk promotions, but junk promotions with the odd good line. Who cares? Good times for everybody. Main thing is that we do a UFC show, not a regional show. So the UFC picks have to be good, and getting blown up by Armfield like that last week, I need a solid bounce back here, Paul.
Oh, bro, it happens. I mean, Armfield had him hurt at the end of in round 2 there. And then he kind of engaged in the grappling, and it's just like, as soon as he did that, you're just like, I see where this is going now. This is very bad. This is very bad. Because it almost felt like if he just maintains range, and it's easy for us to say, right? Like we're sitting our fat asses on a couch screaming at our television for these types of things, but he had him real wobbled in round 2. He probably, like, it seemed like he probably could have got him out of there. But Brady, like, for, credit where credit's due, even when he's hurt, he's just, he desperately shoots for that takedown and grabs a hold of you and tries to slow the pace down. Like, that's kind of been part of his game. He's been knocked down a whole bunch of times, but he's definitely super, super relentless. So credit where credit's due to Brady Highstand there. Follow Cody on Twitter. He'll be dropping his PFL and Bellator potentially on Friday and Saturday. So that's at CJ Saftik. I'm sure if you're watching this show, you probably know. At CJ Saftik on the X machine. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Megan and Cody Saftik, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.
Ow, ow, ow.